Welcome to the latest instalment of the SportsVia webinars with the legendary sports stars we've got. And we've got a superstar today, an absolute legend. Nobody knows. It's a top secret. It's a top secret. Nobody's supposed to know.
Oh, man. When's he getting here?
Yeah, when's he getting here? He's behind you.
Hey.
Just want to give you a bit of housekeeping, guys, really, in terms of how this is going to work. So Lutalo and myself are going to have a quick chat about some bits and bobs, about things that are going on right now, things moving forward in Lutalo's life. And then we're going to get some questions from you guys. So if anytime you want to put some questions, check them in the chat box. Our senior consultant here at Noctis is here, and he's going to filter through them. He's going to present them back to me. And sort of the last 20 or 30 minutes of this hour-long session, we'll open to the floor and make it a bit more engaging. So without further ado, how are we, my man? You all good?
Like, I think making the most of this quarantine to the best of my ability, keeping up my training, staying positive, and it's really nice to be around my family. So I think there's always positives you can take from any situation. So yeah, I'm great.
Nice. And I think, you know, I've spoke to you earlier on this morning. I think that's a key attribute that all successful people have, isn't it? It's making the most of the situation. So how are you getting on with, you know, we see your bits on Instagram, etc. But how are you getting on with your training? Are you still digging it? Are you in with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be sensible. Right now, there's no fights on the booked anywhere. There's nothing on the horizon. We're not sure what's going on. So I'm not, driving at 10,000 miles an hour with my physical training, but there's many other things that you can do. You know, watching fights, studying opponents, which don't really require any or if any physical exertion. It just requires focus. So that's what I would say. I'm just trying to keep the same focus, but maybe using the time also to allow my body to have the rest that it needed, allow me to get over some old injuries, all the while keeping up my training, keep my fitness up. So yeah, still training very intelligently, but it's the focus that you have to maintain throughout this Olympic cycle. Well, this extended Olympic cycle that we're in now.
Yeah, and it's the consistency of that focus, isn't it? That's going to pay dividends. So, you know, doing that research and the mental preparation and understanding your potential competition inside and out is going to pay dividends at some point.
Absolutely. I think consistency is probably the most key principle for success, not just in sports, but I think in any field. I think certainly, I've come across a lot of athletes, and I've been able to learn a lot of lessons over the years by watching others. Some people are great for a season. Some people are great for half a cycle, but very, very few athletes are consistently great time after time and after time. And that's something that I aspire. I'm always aspiring to be better at, is to be as consistent as possible, because winning once is amazing, but there's nothing like winning twice and 3 times and 4 times and 5 times. So, but that consistent winning can only come from consistent focus. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, pushing to the wall every session. With what we know about sports science and sport technology now, we know that's a good way to break down the body, especially in fight sports. There's so much out there about concussion and whatnot now, all contact sports. So being sensible around that and using the time intelligently around that. But like I said, that focus has to remain the same. I think consistency when it comes to focus is probably, if there is a secret, that's it. So you can start the interview now.
Full stop. See you later.
Absolutely. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's very simple, really.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you've got to pace yourself as well, where, we talk about motivation sometimes, where some people are really motivated after some bad news, after a defeat, and, they lose at that moment and they're straight in the gym a minute later and they do 4-6 hours, and then 2 weeks later they're just burnt out emotionally and physically. And I think you've got to have that presence of mind to understand your strengths and your weaknesses from a psychological perspective as well. So tell us a little bit what works for you then. What's the inner voice like of you?
You know what? I would say one of the number one principles for me is being positive. You know, so I think for people, athletes, or anyone that wants to maybe better themselves, that inner voice, you should be saying good things to yourself. I mean, I think as a teenager, I remember this. I wouldn't say coming to the realization, but really meditating and thinking on the thought. But I used to think, hold on, if there's so many billion people in the world, and if all of them are going to doubt me, then I should really be the one person that believes in myself. I mean, and ultimately, that's the only person that actually matters, is you. So, yes, I think that inner voice has to be positive. You have to have that belief in yourself. But if you're kind of getting more into what strategy do I use when it comes to performance from a psychological perspective, I like to be extremely open and honest with myself about any fears I might have about a situation, any anxieties. I don't like to leave anything too much to chance if I can help it. So even if it can seem stupid. Like, for example, one of my what I would call stupid fears about when I first went to the Olympics, I thought, hold on, the whole world's watching me. What if I get into the ring and I slip over and fall on my face? Then I'll be embarrassed and I won't be able to fight properly. Now, that may sound foolish, and it probably is, but just being able to write it down and being open and honest with myself about, this is actually something I'm a little bit concerned about. But then once you see it, you can think about it more on another level. You can say, okay, if that does happen, here's what I'll do in that situation. And ultimately, it doesn't mean anything. If I fall on my face before I get and embarrass myself, it'll all be forgotten after I win the fight. So just, I think when you don't do that, even for the little things, or it might be the big things, against this specific opponent, he's very good with this counter. So that puts fear in my mind that when I go with this kick, even though it's usually one of my best kicks, he's an excellent counter fighter, and I might be leaving myself open, which ironically gives your opponent the best chance of getting a counter, because you're then not committing 100%. So just to kind of break it down for people who when you're in a situation against a counter fighter, to give him the best chance, you really want to, if you hesitate or if you don't fully commit 100%, that's when you're going to get countered most of the time. So really just have to kind of rein it all in, almost think of every conceivable situation. And it's not a short process. It can be a long process. Everything that could happen, I think about each one. And obviously I speak to a sports psychologist, I speak to my coach, and we get it to a stage where where everybody is on the same page. So everything that I can control, everything that's in my control, I prepared for. And I think that's when people or athletes, I should focus on, get anxiety or suffer from lack of focus, is when they focus. Their focus is on the things that are not in their control. So I believe focusing on what you can control, then you give the power to yourself. So once the power is in your hand, you now feel, okay, here's what I'll do in this situation. Here's what I can do. And the mindset changes to more, here's what I can do, rather than here's what I can't do, because you're too busy focusing on all the external forces. So, really my strategy is very simple. It's, I just really focus on myself and just take it step by step. So it's, I wouldn't say it's an easy process, because some of those things, like I mentioned, I don't think, especially maybe in a lot of the combat sports, your natural instinct is to be open and honest about maybe even silly thoughts or fears, especially when you're a fighter. You're supposed to be the biggest, baddest man on the planet. So being honest about saying, you know what, when I get in this situation, I don't like it, because because this and this could happen. I don't want that to happen. If you're in a situation like that, I found that the best policy is just to be completely honest with yourself first, then ideally honest with someone that you trust, like a sports psychologist or a professional, then the levels you can take your mind to, where you can keep leveling up. So that's the, I guess, the foundation of the basic process, which has been able to give me what I believe is a mental edge. I always say the mental edge is the most important edge, because the physicality, you get to a point at the Olympics in my sport where you've got 16 men in the category. So physically, not much separates us. We can all kick and punch, at Olympic level, let's face it. So it's the person who has the best mental edge who is gonna weather the storm, survive the pressure of the situation, and thrive when others kind of go into themselves. So in my experience, that's been the best process for me, and that's how I've been able to level up and keep having more and more success, and more to come, hopefully. No, more to come.
Yeah,
not hopefully.
yeah.
Let's face it.
You'll make it happen, eh? Because you're doing everything you possibly
Absolutely.
can. And to be honest with you, there was so much in there you talked around there that
I know. Yeah, sorry if I went to.
No, it's brilliant, because you were talking about certain things. You were talking about being brutally honest with yourself, being open and honest with your teammates and your coaches. And I was thinking about that importance of the relationship with your coach, your technical coach, your psychologist coach. And you were talking about, being committed to your goals, committed to your game plan, because you've thought it through. And then also, from a business perspective, you were talking about risk management in there, in terms of, well, I've got a little seed of doubt in my mind that if I slipped over, then that's going to be quite embarrassing. If you don't deal with that, if you don't talk about that, you're actually increasing your chances of it happening.
100%. 100%. And unfortunately, I learned that the hard way by actually getting hit. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to get hit in the head no more. Let me deal with this. So that's the good thing about fighting. You quickly pay for your mistakes, and mistakes hurt. So you want to keep leveling up so it doesn't happen again and again. And one thing you mentioned there, which I really liked, was the relationship with I have with my coach and my sports psychologist. And here's one thing I'll say: every successful athlete I've met in the circles I've been in, one thing they all have in common: they use the team around them. They create a team around them, because I think sometimes people get confused with, like, the answer is you, and you have to focus inwardly and deal with you. That you think it's all about you, and in a weird way it is, but you have to have other people to help you along the way. The goals that are worth setting are really, really hard, so you need help. And for me, the best athletes I've seen consistently, they, whether it's the sports psychologist, their coach, performance analysis, nutrition, performance director, team manager, your recovery protocols. So there's so many different aspects, in which requires a lot of people. And when you can kind of draw from all that expertise, your ability to go far, is basically unlimited. If you have the right people around you, and you create the right team around you, for me, that's the best, or that's the consistent theme that I've seen with successful athletes, 100%.
Yeah, and it does map over to the business world. I know we got a couple of people on the call from there, where we've got a simple model we use, and I know Nate, who you met earlier, is a fan of this one, and the acronym's TTPP. I don't know if you heard of this. So
I've not actually.
Right. So the two T's are technical and tactical. They're not the same thing. So your technical side is your technical skills training, which you're seeing all the time with you on Instagram. You're grooving, you're grilling it, you're drilling, and you're getting that right. Now the tactical bit is, how do I use that technical skill? Because if I got the best punch in the world, if I can't land it, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
If I can't protect myself and I get hit all the time, I could score 8 points, but I'm going to concede 15. So that's the implements. That's the two T's, and then the two P's, which are really important, is the psychological bit. So that's what you said, but also the physiological bit, the S&C. And what I see is, from a business perspective, is that there's a huge emphasis on the technical ability of people to do their job, but not necessarily the way they're doing the job. So that needs effective management, and never mind the psychological and the physiological bit of making sure that they're getting active breaks from the desks, that they can go for a mindfulness walk or whatever it is that helps them re-energize, re-ground to come back refreshed.
Mm.
Does that TTPP sort of relate to what you were talking about there?
100%, 100%. I mean, I really like that. I guess, like I said, the technical for me would be the training, but like the tactical, how to apply it in a realistic fight situation. Backed up with the physiology and the psychology. No, 100%. I really, really like that. And obviously, kind of what's won this theme of psychology. I do find it I think it's getting a lot better, but when we get young kids into sport, we focus so much on the physical side of things, almost exclusively. You see the motivation videos like Michael Jordan or great athletes, Roger Federer. It's always focused on the physicality and the training, but you never see in these motivation videos MJ or Kobe or whoever you admire sat there with either his psychologist or reading or developing his mind. And I think it's such a massive opportunity for anyone that wants to get a leg up or a level up, is to focus on that side of things. I have to do a quick shout out. One of the persons that really changed my attitude towards the mental side of things was Dr. Steve Peters and his chimp management model. So I guess for a deeper understanding of some of the principles I'm talking about, I'd recommend looking up some of that material to anyone listening.
I think as humans as well, when we're having difficult times, and this will probably resonate with you as well, is that we're confused, we're dazed, we're not sure what's going on. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't want the solutions. What we want to know is, explain to me what's going on. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I having these thought patterns? Because if I then understand it, I can then do something about it. And I think that's the difference sometimes, where you can have people that try and solve the problem for you, which isn't always great for the long term in terms of learning. Or there's the better people, which, the likes of Steve Peters there and your psychologists within GB, are there to educate you as well. It's part of that journey, isn't it? Rather than just thinking about the outcome, it's about ensuring we're empowering and ensuring people can learn for themselves.
Absolutely. Well, everything's in the learning, like you said, because ultimately you have to do the work. You could, I don't know, I don't care if it's any good, it could be Tony Robbins, whatever, you still have to do the work. So I think absolutely the best educators are the ones that empower their students to really think for themselves and relate the principles to themselves in their own lives. Otherwise, you're just you're intellectually stimulating yourself, but you're actually not doing anything with the information.
So I did read up when I was doing a little bit of research that one of the unknown facts about you is that you're a bit of a bookworm. You like reading.
Yeah, true? I do actually. Yes. I do like reading. That's been one of the, I guess, benefits I've been able to take out of quarantine. I've been able to do a bit more reading than I normally would. So yeah, I do like books. Absolutely.
What type of things are you reading at the moment?
I like. I do like a lot of success books. So, any works by like Napoleon Hill. I was reading some, in fact, the rapper 50 Cent, he brought out a book just recently. So I just read that most recently. I think when I was younger, I was more into fiction and novels, all that stuff. But as I've gotten older, I'm more into nonfiction. So yeah, but I tend to, I guess, what do you call it? Self-help, those kind of books. I tend to read those kind of books. I don't know if that's the...
Yes, personal development, isn't it? Because sometimes I think
personal development sounds a lot better.
Yeah. And they can be self-helpful, can't they? And I think sometimes when you read them, you're thinking, yeah, I know that, I'm already doing it. That gives you a bit of confidence, doesn't it? And then you go, right, I didn't know that could work for me. I'll give it a go.
I think as well, what I think is really good about reading is you can read about principles, and usually there's examples that you can kind of relate to. So I think that's definitely one of the best things about reading, is if you're reading autobiographies about great women or great men that you might admire. You can kind of draw from their experience also. So that's definitely something that was big for me when I was first, hoping to get into the GB, Team GB. I'd read Michael Johnson's books, and I admired him a lot. Sebco, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard. So I used to read about all these people that I aspired to be like. And there's patterns. Like I said, success leaves, it leaves a blueprint. So the more I read about people that had excelled in the field that I wanted to excel in, the more I felt like I could relate to them, and the more lessons I could learn, and the more those like principles like consistency become more and more apparent. So yeah, absolutely a big fan of reading.
Yeah, no, and all my reading has proven that as well, and spending time around successful people, that it is a process. You've just got to work out what process works best for you.
Absolutely.
And that's why I really liked what you said there about that blueprint. So talk about your learning then. So how does, you preparing to go into London 2012 and then going through that experience, going through the experience of Rio, how does that compare to how you are right now?
I think I'm going into this next, into Tokyo, this next games. What is the most different? I think more than anything, I've learned about myself, really. So as you just kind of mentioned, I know what works for me and what necessarily doesn't work for me. I know because I'm open and honest with myself, I know what what natural characteristics I have which are negative, and obviously which ones are positive as well. And so I try and design a like a schedule or a system around that. And there's certain things I do or stay away from because I know they're not for me. So I think more than anything, I just have a greater understanding of myself and what works for me, and almost like how much training I have to do to get to a certain point. And so I just, more than anything, I just feel like I'm more in tune with my mind and body, and having that knowledge of self. It takes time. It takes experience. You have to go through those hard moments. Obviously, losing in London, was tough, but losing in Rio in the last second was very tough as well. So I just feel like I'm a tougher, more in tune athlete. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. I feel like I should say I know what works for me and I know what doesn't work for me. So I'll say, as simple as that sounds, that's probably the most valuable thing for me. What has been the most valuable thing for me this cycle, and what I believe is going to take me to the top of the podium next year.
Yeah, and we'll come on to that in a minute. So we may as well jump in. Claire's asked the question there in terms of what's your process for sort of dealing with not winning, even though you've done everything you possibly can. So what's your process there?
Well, when you've done everything you possibly can, it's actually not that difficult, because it's like, okay, I did my absolute best. When you have it's hard, and it's a tough pill to swallow, and it's really difficult when you leave the ring knowing, man, there's more I could have done in there, or man, what if I didn't skip that? What if I didn't skip that training? Or I knew I should have watched those. I knew I should have studied that extra opponent. So that's when regret comes, and that's when it's tougher to deal with. But if you ask for a process, it looks like the day of, if it's not gone my way, it is what it is, and that comes from the confidence of knowing that I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it right. And I think that confidence comes from, because afterwards, win or lose, I watched the fight. So I studied the fight. I watched the mistakes or the areas I could improve, I should say, and the things I did really well. And I've been very, very, very lucky where every time I've lost, it's been because of something that I could have done better. So I've never really, even the times where I've lost and I'm thinking, oh man, I gave my preparation, everything. I did the best I could in that situation. You know, if I catch a loss, it's there's something I could have done to improve. So there's always another level to go. So if there is a process, that's what it is. You know, it's yeah, it never stops. It never stops. It is it's an ongoing process. That's why that principle of consistency is, I believe, the most important principle, because it keeps on going. It keeps on going. And I remember after the Olympics, you know, I lost in the last second. What felt like a absolute disaster, you know, for a few minutes, like, but you know, it felt like the world was coming in. The next day, the sun rose at 5 a.m. as normal. So what I'm saying is, hey, life goes on. So if I have a process, it's like, hey, get over yourself. You know, it is what it is. Life goes on. And I never really let myself sink into, you know, a depression or a sadness for, I'll say, longer than, I feel like, half a day, because ultimately, as obsessive as I can get about this sport, I feel like that post, especially after a fight, that clarity, win or lose, you realize there's far more important things in life. There's more, you know, there's people, you know, losing a gold medal from what feels like, oh, that was so cruel, is in the last second. You know, that's cruel, but is it more cruel than, you know, the girl in India that's looking for her next meal or hasn't eaten for 10 days? So I think you have to have balance also. You have to just realize, hey, sometimes you just need to get over yourself. This is massive for you, and this is huge in your life. But in the grand scheme of things, there's more important things going on in the world. So that's how I'm just able to bring it kind of right back down to earth. And it's always a simple process. Okay, I could have improved it there. That technique there didn't work, so I should have done this. Next time we'll do that, and I'll get him. So it's just, you can't afford to you know, go into despair because you're in the wrong profession. Hey, we got another fight in 8 weeks. We got to get back to work. So and I think that's the best attitude to have. You know, there's always going to be losses along the way. There's always going to be losses along the way. So you just got to keep bouncing back. And yeah, so if there is a process, I would say, I don't know if it's a process, but it's more of a mindset.
Yeah, but what I was getting from it was, you know, you are consistent in terms of your analysis of your performance. So there's always always something you could have done better. So that's a really powerful message around reflecting on your own performance. So, you know, it doesn't get to the point where this guy was just too good for me. It's a case of, well, actually, you know, I dropped my arm there, I took a backward step, or my body position was quite wrong, or so, right, I need to be aware of that. And if that happens again, I'm aware of it, you know, so
100%, and that's actually you know, a principle that obviously I've developed just from years of doing it, but that is something that I feel like I gained from Michael Johnson, the great 200 and 400 meter runner, one of my sporting idols growing up. I used to love watching him in those golden shoes tearing up the track. But I remember when I read his book, when he broke the world record, it was a great world record, and he spoke about the race, and he said, I stumbled on the third step, and he wondered, like, you know, if I hadn't done that, I could have run even faster. So I think as a little boy reading that taught me that even when you run what seemed like a perfect race or a perfect performance to spectators, you demolish the world record. Michael knew that there was room for improvement. So there's always room for improvement. So I think that's just my attitude to everything.
Yeah, and I think that ties in really nicely, because actually you sparked a memory in me there that actually I didn't know it at the time, but one of the first ever personal development books I must have read was, I was about 11 or 12, and it was Michael Johnson's Slaying the Dragon.
Yes, love that book.
Yeah. And there's probably loads of people on the call going, oh, never heard of it. But it's one of the first ones, and it links quite nicely with Steve Peters' Chin Paradox. He's talking about, you know, get that monkey off your shoulder, get that dragon off your back that's holding you back, because until you deal with that and you want to improve, it's always going to be that anchor holding you back. And I really like the way he talked about how he's a really successful businessman too, but he took the same principles into business, mindset, performance, analysis, and go, you know.
Absolutely. And like you said, the I think there's a reason why people like Michael Johnson have emulated his success in business. There's a reason why Magic Johnson and certain super elite athletes, Michael Jordan, Kobe, obviously, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, why they're able to make that transition to another career and still be super successful is because of those principles. It's whether it's sport, whether it's business. I believe it's your principles which is what's going to give you success.
Yeah, and before let's not talk about Michael Johnson and The Last Dance. I'm sure you've watched that. The other thing you talked about was dealing with it the day after, or it only lasts half a day. And I think what's really important with dealing with maybe a setback rather than failure is that perspective, isn't it? You understand that actually, if I'm going to go and just stay in bed for 2 or 3 days, upset, I'm losing 2 or 3 days worth of training.
So, absolutely. Or even if it's not training, you're losing 2 or 3 days of
life,
just being normal, of life. And and that's why I think it's always important, just bring it right back down to earth. As this is, as important as this is, as big as this is in my brain right now, ultimately, come on, it's just kicking and punching. So just, chill out. No, seriously, I mean, there's a time to be obsessively focused, and there's a time just to just kind of rein things in a bit and just remember what is most important in life. So absolutely. I've never been one to, I guess, well, maybe I should say I've been fortunate to never go into a depression or a very sad period. Even though I've had some tough moments in my career, I've been able to bounce back from those setbacks, like you said, extremely quickly, because and I think that's the reason why.
So it sounds to me, and I would predict this, I don't know, but obviously your father's been very instrumental in terms of getting you involved in the sport and supporting you.
Oh, absolutely.
He's
yes.
still on the pads now. Was
yeah.
Was it a lot about ingraining that work ethic in you, and that groundedness to be able to kick on and improve? Was that part of, your family upbringing?
Yes, definitely. I think I was raised in a family where I was taught the value of hard work. And also, I feel like I am who I am because I was raised in a family where I was taught that, to be very frank, coming first or being a winner is better than anything else. So it was always my attitude when I decided that I was going to, take professional sports very seriously, that if I'm in it, well, heck, I'm in it to win it. So and that's why one of the first things I really did was study great champions from the past, not just in my sport, but from all other sports, and would have been current champions at the time. So absolutely, my family upbringing has been, hugely instrumental in how I approach my life.
And then part of those values, I mean, if we jump forward from obviously your upbringing to, let's go to Rio and, the interview at the end, you were obviously distraught, you were emotional, you were disappointed. But I think what really allowed you to connect with a lot of people was your honesty. That because sometimes these professionals, let's call it professionals, just put a straight face on, see what boxing and they just march straight out of the arena, and they'll do it behind closed doors. Yours was just open and going, man, this is brutal. I've just lost in the last second. I'm not happy. I don't know what to say. But from my perspective, as a performance coach, I was just going, that's brilliant that he's releasing that, because it's out of the way then.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Obviously, you don't plan for things to happen that way. It just happened, and what you mentioned about the way the BBC, where the stand was literally 10 yards away from the ring. So what you saw, or what everybody saw, was the absolute raw emotion of about, I would guess, 45 seconds to a minute, 45 to 90 seconds after it literally had just happened. So, but where you're also right is, I think why I was able to, bounce back so quickly and look at it so rationally for what it was so quickly was because I got that emotion now straight away. So in a way, it was an absolute blessing that it happened the way it happened, because who knows? I like to think I missed the positive, but maybe I'll still be grumpy now if it hadn't been for that interview. I doubt it though.
But I think what stood out for me is that, you know, Team GB is, let's be honest, has been ridiculously successful at the Olympics. And
oh, it's mad. It's crazy.
As the British public, though, we're used to seeing people coming home, you know, Heathrow, medals, going home, bus stops. What we very rarely see is the reality of the ones that don't win gold. And I think your powerful interview at that moment brought that home, you know, that not everybody's winning gold out there.
Absolutely. Like, you know, and that is just life. That is life. I mean, I think always try to be number one, try to be the best, and you know, if it doesn't go your way, you just have to accept it. And yeah, I think the reason why I think that's why that interview resonated so much, because it's reality. You don't always get the promotion, you know. Your relationships aren't always fantastic. Things go wrong, sometimes in the last second. So it's like it's life, and I feel that's what people were able to resonate with. And I just feel I would say, you know, very grateful, and I feel very blessed that not everybody in life, when they fail, they come back home to, you know, what feels like tens of thousands of people showing their support, and you know, that is definitely also I guess something that fuels me also, is to complete the set and win gold next year would be amazing for me. But I think it would also be a great moment after how the final went last time, for all the spectators as well. So yeah, absolutely.
That'd be amazing. And before we come on to some of the questions that are coming in, and the guys that are on the call that emailed me this morning, I have got them, and I will present them shortly. So let's fast forward then. So let's talk about, you know, it's basically 4 years now, isn't it, since that final, which is crazy. Talk to us a little bit about how that 4 years has gone, form, training. You know, obviously COVID hitting, Tokyo slipping back potentially 12 months because we haven't got a fixed date yet. How's the last 4 years since that moment been for you?
Well, from a Taekwondo perspective, it hasn't been as smooth as I think I would have liked it. I think I would have envisioned bouncing back from Rio and starting to dominate straight away. I came back with that intention, but unfortunately, you know, I ran into, you know, some injuries which kept me out for months at a time, which has been unfortunate that it happened. But the positive is it made me extremely aware of some of the weaknesses I had in my physiology, in my body. You know, there's muscles I needed to strengthen. You know, when you got to find, okay, why are these injuries happening? And that's you kind of start that process again. And I'm at a point now where I feel stronger than I've ever been, and I'm very excited. And ironically, who knows, if I hadn't had the injury, maybe I wouldn't have got to where I am now. So I don't have any regrets. But I'm at a stage now where I'm extremely confident about next year, and you know, the opportunity that's in front of me. I just came off a big win at the French Open, where although I didn't compete at the World Championships due to injury, I fought and beat two of the medalists. So where I'm confident where I am, and very confident about where I'm going. So you know, this cycle has been, I guess, an injury cycle, but I believe that I'm literally in the right place, you know, right on time. And you know, I've had a great team around me, and I've been able to, you know, draw on a lot of experience, and yeah, I'm at a point now where I'm ready. So bring it on, bring it on.
And another year to prepare, so look out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, you always got to just look at the positives for every situation you're in. So, like I said, having an extra year to prepare, there's no athlete on the planet that's going to complain about that. So, as soon as we can, I guess get back to full training, hopefully, when this blows over, if it does blow over, we can get back to international flights and tournaments. And yeah, hopefully it is just a 12-month suspension for the Olympics, so we can get it on next year. Because yeah, next year is going to be a bumper year for sport. My Lord,
it's going to be crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. All capped off by that gold medal.
Absolutely, for sure. Let's jump on to some of the questions then. So David's put one in the chat. He was saying or asking, do you ever struggle with motivation?
Yes, absolutely. But I'm not really bothered about motivation. Motivation is fleeting. We mentioned in our talk, you can be motivated. Something can happen. You can be motivated for 20 days, and you can burn out. So motivation, I've almost had to learn the hard way, isn't really that important. Your principles are. So the consistent things that I do without fail, no matter what, that's what's gonna get me through, whether I'm motivated or not. Because some mornings, do I want to get up and fight another heavyweight and take blows? Of course not. That would be I'll be a little bit insane if I if I enjoyed every aspect of the training. I definitely don't want to go on some of the runs. I don't want to do some of the conditioning. I dare say, after almost 9 years in an elite program, you kind of have seen it all. so not everything you do is going to be super exciting and you're going to be super motivated for. But when you stick to if you commit to principles, and I'll use that word commit, when you commit to something, that's when no matter what, you're going to do it. Because you know what the end result will be if you do it. And because I'm committed to become an Olympic champion, whatever it is, I'm going to be where I need to be. So yeah, motivation, I wouldn't even focus on motivation. If you're motivated, amazing, that's great. But ultimately, feelings don't matter. You might not, you might, there's going to be, I've been at competitions where I've not been the most motivated. It's a small tournament. It's not the Olympics. Am I as excited as I would be for the Olympics? No. But if I don't get through this small level tournament, I'm not going to make it to the Olympics. So you just have to keep chipping away and commit to something. When you commit to something, you won't have to worry about motivation.
I think we've done 4 or 5 of these series now, talking to your stablemates, if you like, and it's a topic that's come up every single time. Is motivation comes and goes, and that's fine. You've got to accept that because it's emotional. But you're either committed or you're not. If you're committed to your goal, you'll find a way. If you're not committed to your goal, you've got to ask yourself, is it the right goal?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. There's going to be plenty of days where the motivation isn't there, and like I said, ironically, there'll even be performance days where you won't be as motivated. Sometimes you can't even explain it. You just know, you may not feel like you have the juice, but you just have to rein it back in. Okay, feelings don't matter. I'm here. I'm committed to my job. I'm going to take this one step at a time. Boom, boom, boom. And you just get it done. You get it done.
Yeah, and I think the follow-up question there was around, does having these big goals help you stay motivated? But I think you've answered that already in terms of, well, I'm just committed to those events. I'm committed to those games. So, I'll just crack on and get it done because I know where I'm going. I
would say, though, if you want to, to commit to something, I would definitely suggest setting big, massive goals. I think the bigger the goal is, the more you're going to have that initial excitement. I think you almost want to have a goal where you semi-doubt yourself a little bit, like, yo, can I really do that? And once you got goals like that, then, you know, that's when you want that inner voice to be like, yeah, I can do it. And I'm going to do it to prove myself right. Because ultimately, as much as I think it's good to, you know, impress other people or do, you know, do some great thing, like, you shouldn't really be looking for other people's validation. All your goals should be self-motivated. And I use that word, and I think that's the only way you should use the word motivation. It has to come from within. So, you know, set big goals, then prove yourself right. Proving other people wrong is great, but proving yourself right is even better.
Yeah, great point. Really like that. And I think that psychology feeds into the next question as well, because Dominic emailed earlier and he was just wondering if you're familiar with the work of Lenny Bassam from the mental approach from going silver to gold.
No, I'm not.
So I'm
Lenny
guessing,
Bassam.
yeah, I'm guessing he's making a recommendation there because he's obviously walked the walk you've done. So he was talking about that.
I'll jot his name down and I'll look him up. Thank you very much.
From a day-to-day perspective, and Greg was asking about, you know, what time do you start training, how often do you train, how many sessions are you doing per week and stuff like that, just for them to benchmark off, I suppose.
Oh, sure. Well, on a regular training day outside of this Corona period, it would normally look like, I say, getting up for 7:30, because I want to be at the gym for about 8:20. Then I'm going to do a kind of an individual kind of functional warm up. If I need to see the physios for anything, we'll get going. Then I'll train Taekwondo from about 9 till 11. Sometimes a bit longer depending on what phase we're in. Then we'll have a break. In that break time, that's a great time if you need to catch your nutritionist, your psychologist, or any other performance analyst, a member of your support staff, you know, so you want to get those meetings in if you can there. Then you, after that, you come back again for 2 for strength conditioning. And strength and conditioning for a Taekwondo athlete, like plyometrics, Olympic lifts, you know, pretty much anything you can imagine. Taekwondo is quite a versatile sport where, you know, being a good athlete in every area is only going to benefit you. So we have kind of a broad approach to strength conditioning. It's quite individualized. And then after that, the focus becomes on recovery. So we're very blessed at GD Taekwondo to have contrast balls on site. We used to have to go somewhere else, so we got that on site. So I'll hop into the jacuzzi for 15 minutes. I might get in the cold bath for about 30 seconds. No. I bring my physio with me because he makes sure I do the cold bath because I don't know. I don't know. I've got that. See, I've got that tropical complexion. So I this kind of weather here, this is great for me. You know, the other one is, you know, it's a bit hit and miss. So, but there's a lot of benefit in cryotherapy. So I make sure I get my recovery in, and then you know, repeat for the next day. Let me just say this one thing: any young athletes, if you're on this call, or if you know someone that's a young athlete, the earlier you start to prioritize your recovery, the better your career is going to be and the longer your career is going to be. Hey, look, man, I know you like to stay out till 3 a.m. playing Fortnite, eating whatever you want, but the sooner you start to take care of your recovery, make sure you getting enough sleep, making sure you do the stuff that your physio rehab, the cryotherapy and all that, because I sometimes used to like to skip some of those things when I was younger, but the earlier you get on top of that, the earlier you become a full professional, just taking care of every aspect, not just your training, but your recovery, and you're gonna have a great career.
Well, it's a game changer, isn't it? I think once you start realizing that recovery, it isn't recovery, it's part of your program.
Absolutely.
It's sometimes more important than your training, because you don't actually get fit by training, you get fit by rest and recovery, so you can go again. It's that consistency piece again.
Absolutely, definitely, to go again and again, and like I said, that's the consistency, and that's how winning is done. And the best thing you can do more than anything, if you do nothing else, is get sleep. Invest in a good mattress if you can afford it, or get yourself set yourself a bedtime, put your phone down, and commit to going to bed at that time. I'll be real, we're in quarantine, so I've been a little bit naughty with that recently. I like to be honest. But when we're in regular training, getting that regular sleep has been the biggest game changer for me. When I was a little bit, maybe when I was just starting out my career as a teenager in Team GB, I'd never really been a great sleeper. So I thought, so I could get, 5 hours, 5.5 hours, and feel great. But as I got a little older, as I started to approach my late 20s, I was, I noticed the effects of, hey man, I feel like if I get one bad night of sleep, I don't feel as great in the morning. And you may think, okay, what does that mean? But that morning session, you could, you might not be paying attention as much, get in a situation, your foot's in the wrong position, you might tear your ACL. And that sounds very, very drastic or very dramatic, but these are real situations that I've literally seen with my own eyes. And so taking care of your recovery, sleep should be your number one priority as a professional athlete. If I could go back and give my 19-year-old self one piece of advice specific to sport, I'll say start getting to sleep a little earlier and start sleeping a little longer, because absolutely. So please do that.
The problem with 18 and 19-year-olds is that their parents and they're telling them what to do and they're rebelling, so they want to do what they want, and you get into your PlayStations and stuff. So it's hard.
I know.
But it's the best.
Most people will learn the hard way like me, but I'm just saying, if you want to listen, if you want to accelerate your gains, go to sleep.
Yeah, definitely. Right then, last few questions, quick fire round as well, right? Because we're running out of time.
Awesome.
So 30-second answers if you can. So
sure.
Your most favorite win of all time?
European Championships 2012, my first major international medal, and that's the medal that introduced me to the world of Taekwondo fully and properly. Yeah, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Are there any competitors you're aware of? You're constantly aware of? You're fearful of?
Or fearful of? No, I'm not scared of any of my opponents, but I respect them all, and I study all of them intently.
And any interest in MMA?
I love mixed martial arts. I'm a huge fan of Bellator and the UFC. So Dana White, if you're on this call, see my agent Andy, and we can sign a contract. No. I mean, I love MMA. I really, really enjoy it. But right now, my focus is competitive Taekwondo. But who knows what the future holds?
Okay, and a quick 30 seconds, clear black and white prediction for the future for yourself.
I see myself winning the Olympic heavyweight gold medal in 2021 next year. And I believe I'll do it again in 2024. But one gold medal at a time.
Perfect. Well, it's been amazing chatting to you, mate. You're obviously a really nice guy, grounded, determined and successful. And I'm sure that it's come across like that to everybody else on the call. So on behalf of them, I want to wish you all the success. I'm sure that you'll stick to your own messages of being committed and carrying on that relentless path for success. And thanks so much for your time.
Really good on that word, relentless. Read the book, Tim Grover. Obviously, I can tell you've read it. That was definitely, I got some life-changing principles from that as well. So yeah, keep reading and keep sleeping and stay on top of your recovery. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, just for the guys, before you jump off then, just, it is recorded. We'll be editing it and it'll be out on social media over the next couple of days. And I'm sure Lutalo will share that as well. So if anybody you think that will find this beneficial, please tag them into it, share it along, because there was loads of insightful stuff in there as expected. And we're going to have to do this again sometime. There's so much we could talk about.
I would love to. I'd love to. And anytime. It was a great conversation. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you all next time.
Take care. Thank you very much.